In the last video, we talked all about why your subconscious mind is not always the part of you that's running the show. And once you understand that, the next question is no longer, why can't I just change? The better question becomes, how do you reach that part of your mind that is operating from the past? The part that's hardwired, that lives so deep in the body, in the nervous system. It learned mechanisms, how to protect, how to react. It even anticipates your future experiences based on your past events. So when we're unable to follow through with change that we planned on making, it's not because you don't want it badly enough. It's because the mind doesn't automatically just release what it had practiced for years. And this is where hypnotherapy starts to become so powerful and so effective. So what is it exactly? In simplest terms, it's a process that guides the mind into a focused, relaxed, and a highly receptive state. Very similar to meditation, but with a much more specific purpose. Hypnotherapy is not to be confused with any sort of a stage hypnosis. It's not mind control, and you're not unconscious. In fact, it's the complete opposite. The attention becomes much more refined. And the process gently invites the body and the mind to drift into stillness. And your brain waves move from very busy beta brain waves and they start shifting into alpha. And that slows the mind significantly. The body goes into a deep stillness and relaxation. And the mind is now muting that critical analytical barrier of your conscious thought. But now that phase is actually further progressed into an even slower brainwave called the theta brainwave. Now the theta brainwave is a state often associated with deep meditation, with intuition, with suggestibility, neuroplasticity, and creative flow also happens within the theta state. A lot of times people can enter a creative flow unknowingly. If you ever began reading a book that captivated you and suddenly you realize you just read 60 pages in 15 minutes, you have unconsciously entered the theta state and you were in the zone. This happens with artists a lot too when they begin a painting or a sculpture and suddenly they lose a sense of awareness of the physical world and they operate entirely on intuition or even visual feedback. So when this happens in hypnotherapy and a person enters the theta state, the brain's alarm system goes quiet. This is where we reach the golden window where the mechanical protocol of suggestion takes place. You are no longer processing the outside world. The conflicting thoughts begin to fade out. You're not doubting yourself. There's not much resistance going on. And I'll give you an example. If normally someone tells you that vape is so bad for you, you need to stop, you really don't need it, you can quit, you know that. Your conscious mind argues immediately and says, yes, I do. It's in my pocket, I'm actually gonna go outside and smoke it right now. But during the theta state, that critical voice is offline and your subconscious becomes more open. And that is where rewiring becomes possible. The neural pathways that control your habits, your emotions, and your physical sensations become more receptive. They become more available for change, for something new to take root. During that suggestibility stage, the therapeutic work comes in. And this is done through the use of carefully directed language that speaks to the very pattern that we are working to change, where new imagery, new emotional experiences, and new internal associations are embedded in the deepest layers of the mind. A person can begin imagining themselves feeling different, not just as an idea, but as an experience, so that it can trigger the feeling, the emotion. Feeling is what ultimately amplifies and accelerates your new desired outcome. So now, once those suggestions have been installed, the final phase is emergence. The mind is gently guided back into full awareness, and when you do come back, you feel so ultimately rested, super refreshed, very ready for the day, And already after the first session, you return with something shifted, a calmer nervous system, a different internal association, how you perceive yourself, a new image of you and who you are becoming, a new emotional imprint for your subconscious mind to begin to recognize. This is why hypnotherapy can feel so different from simply thinking about change, because thinking about change keeps the process on the surface level. Hypnotherapy, on the other hand, helps that change move deeper into the body, into the emotional system, into the part of the mind where identity is actually being reinforced. And here is the part that transforms this experience from just awareness into ownership, and ultimately making this integration fully yours. Because one session can feel incredible and very, very powerful. But realistically, the patterns that you carry now were not formed overnight. They were not formed over one thought or one experience. They were enforced over time through repeated emotion, through repeated reactions, repeated behaviors, repeated identities. So real change often follows the same principle. And this is why repetition matters. You want to solidify this new embodiment into your core. So when you do start listening to this, focus on the one session for 2 to 3 weeks so that you can accelerate and materialize this transformation. Go in with the intention of returning into this as a new state, as your new state, so that your mind and your body are actively learning to recognize this new internal reality. This is what turns simple awareness into integration, where you go from recognizing a pattern to reconditioning its inner structure altogether, all while doing this gently and deliberately. Because when your inner identity starts changing, your outer reality begins to respond differently. You begin to make different choices. You tolerate less of what weakens you and become more available to what strengthens you. You stop negotiating with the patterns that keep you small and quietly begin to discover yourself, your true self, not shaped by fear or your old self or the old stories or by what people needed you to be. The version of you that was never fully allowed to emerge. Imagine what new possibilities you can attract. What types of new connections you can cultivate, new friendships, new relationships. Where is this new you going to bring you? This is at the heart of reEMERG. It's to help you discover yourself more deeply with more awareness, more peace, more internal power, and a much deeper understanding of how your mind works. So, when you listen to a session, try to treat it as a ritual. Make it sacred. Create space for yourself. This should be a quiet, uninterrupted moment you are giving for yourself. If possible, use headphones so that the sound and the language and the experience can just surround you fully. Each recording is intentionally designed to guide you beyond surface level thought. Every one of these sessions are carefully structured with immersive sound, the language, the calming visuals that will help your mind quiet and your body settle. Let's talk about some of the best times to listen to these sessions. Usually you want to listen to them either right before going to sleep or as you first wake up. So right before going to sleep, as you drift off, you're naturally entering the theta state, when the subconscious mind becomes a little bit more open to the theme that you're choosing to fall asleep with. And more importantly, the suggestions that you're going to be hearing, they'll begin planting themselves like seeds, and they take root overnight. And then they start flourishing into a new internal pattern while you are sleeping. And that is so extremely powerful. And if you are a morning person and you choose to listen to this in the morning when you first wake up, that drowsy, sleepy state when you first wake up, that's the perfect quiet window to prime your mind with an intentional objective that will carry you through the day with openness, with enthusiasm, with confidence, self-assurance. So maybe try both and see what works best for you. The goal is to stay gently aware as you listen. But if you do happen to drift off and fall asleep, that's okay. You're already entered a slower, more receptive state, and the intention of the session can continue settling into your mind as you sleep. With that, I do want to be transparent. Hypnotherapy will not override your free will. It cannot force you into something your mind does not accept. If you're going into this with doubt or with disbelief, and if you say things like, oh, this is probably not gonna work for me, I tried it all, it never helps me, guess what? It probably won't, because this will work with your willingness, not against it. So it will require your honesty, your readiness, your openness to change. So if you're here, chances are there's a quiet part of you and a quiet knowing within you that there's more available for you, and you're ready to meet yourself differently than you have before. And once you do, something powerful begins to happen. Not only are you releasing that primitive persona, but the level of awareness that you gain through this will give you so much more clarity, so much more guidance, direction, aligning you closer with your purpose, allowing you to consciously create your inner world so that you are no longer responding to life, you are actually creating it. And this is what makes this space so interesting and powerful, and something that helped me with many of my own vices. This work is not just about feeling better for the moment, it is about self-discovery and becoming someone that no longer exists on autopilot. So maybe this is where you begin, by noticing these subconscious patterns, but without judging them. Understanding the part of you that learned all of these patterns, and by illuminating the person that you are beneath all the things that you were taught to become. If you want to understand how repetition begins shaping perception itself, then the next video will dive right into that fascinating system in our brain called the reticular activating system, which will help explain why when you focus on something, it starts becoming what you notice, what you prioritize, what you filter, and what the mind accepts as familiar. Everything that I'm creating here on reEMERG is meant to be accessible, not hidden behind complicated systems, not sending you to join another membership. It's all right here. And as this library continues to grow, my only intention is to make this work as supportive and as convenient as possible, making it available for you so it becomes something you can actually return to and integrate it into your life. Thank you again for being here. If this resonated with you, I invite you to support this work by liking, subscribing, or sharing this with someone who may need to hear it. Sometimes one message reaches a person at exactly the right moment, and your support helps this work reach the people that it's meant to reach. So, until next time.